If you've clicked on this video, I'm guessing you've either retired already or you're thinking about retirement. And I'm also guessing that you probably have a few reservations about things that you might regret in retirement, either the things that you regret doing or the things that you regret not doing. Hi, I'm Bev, and I retired at the age of 58 at the end of 2024. And I think a fear of regrets was one of the big reasons that I chose to take retirement early. And in this video, I want to share my personal thoughts on how we can perhaps avoid having those regrets, how we can identify what those regret worries might be, and how we can manage how we feel about regrets. So if this sounds like something that you're going to be interested in, please stick around. I've got 5 main points I want to get across, and these are, of course, just my thoughts. Now, I'm not going to be talking about financial regrets. I don't talk about finances. It's not my bag. It's certainly not my area of expertise. But of course, if you're looking to retire early, or if you're in retirement, you're going to want to make sure that you're in a financial position that allows you to live the life you want to live. But as I say, I'm not an expert on this, so that's not an area I'm going to be talking about. So the first thing is really about how do we let go of the regrets that we have around some of the decisions that we may have made in our life that maybe with hindsight weren't the best decisions ever. Because I think it's so easy to hang on to those regrets. But the truth is, what's happened in the past, we can't really do anything about it. It's gone, it's done. And there's certainly things in my past that I look back and think, oh, I could have made a better choice there. But I can't afford to regret them. And believe me, there have been many years of feeling like there were regrets about the decisions I made, but I had to try and reframe them. And I'm hoping this is going to be something that you might consider thinking about as well. So just to give you an example of this, I got married at the age of 20. I was far too young. And it wasn't the best marriage ever. I ended up marrying an aggressive, violent bully. And that lasted 6 years before I came to my senses and walked away from that marriage. And I can't hand on heart say that I haven't spent a fair amount of my adult life regretting that decision. But if I look at the decision to get married, whether it was a good decision or not, what came out of that bad marriage was my beautiful daughter and subsequently my beautiful granddaughter, neither of which would be in my life if I hadn't had that bad marriage. And for me, the positives outweigh the negatives. So we all make bad decisions. We can't dwell on them. And without that decision, I wouldn't have had the joy that my daughter and my granddaughter have brought me. So being able to reframe those regrets, I think, is so important. Because in reality, regretting the decisions you've made is such a waste of our energy. We can't do anything about the past. We can only do anything about the present and potentially use our experience to design a different future. So regrets about the things we've done, it's not worth the energy. And the second point, which is kind of the reverse of this, is letting go of the regret over the things that you wish you had done and you didn't. Now, one of the benefits of retirement is that maybe once you haven't got the demands of working life, maybe you've got the time now to catch up on some of those things that you didn't do. For example, I wish I'd travelled more when I was younger. I wish I'd taken a gap year, which would have been difficult because I didn't go to university, but I wish I'd just taken a year to travel and to grow. Yes, I think that they're wishes, but I've got the opportunity to now, with more time on my hands, to travel more, which is what we're doing. We've been on cruises that have taken us all over the world. We've now got our camper van. We're able to travel really anywhere we want to go. And we've got, it's warm in here, and we've got the time and the energy while we're still young enough to go and play catch up on some of those missed opportunities when we were younger. That said, we lived in Cyprus for 3 years and we have travelled, but probably not as much as in an ideal world I'd have liked to have travelled. Another one that I could easily look back on and think, oh, I wish I'd done that and I regret not doing it, is going to university straight from school. I didn't go to university. I did my degree as a distance degree, so I never had that whole university experience. But if I think about it more deeply, I think I would have hated it. I certainly wasn't mature enough in my late teens, early 20s to be disciplined enough to study. I would have been one of those people that was probably a university dropout. I just didn't have the commitment to study that I have now that I'm older. And I wasn't ready, I wasn't mature enough. And maybe I could argue that going to university might have helped me to mature more early, I don't know. But if I want to study, I've done my degree, so I can tick that box. If I want to, I could do it now. There's no limit, no age limit on when we can go to university. But I do think that there's a worry that we regret the things we didn't do. Now, there are some things that we'll just have missed that boat. I remember when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I really wanted to go to drama school and be an actor. And I missed that boat. And realistically, I'm not saying it's impossible, but realistically, that's not going to happen now. But I'm fine, I can let that one go. But that doesn't mean to say that if I wanted to now, I couldn't go and join an amateur theatre company or something like that. So it's never really too late. And I think retirement gives us the opportunity to perhaps revisit some of the opportunities that we didn't take because of the constraints of bringing up a family or developing our career, that we can actually stop and try and do now. On this vein as well, I think one of the things that I've spent a lot of time regretting is not taking the time to learn more about my parents. I lost both my mum and my dad in my 20s. I was only 22 when my mum died. I was just shy of 30 when my dad died. And I really would have loved to have known more about them as the people that they really were, not the parents, because I think as children we see a different side to our parents. I didn't know them as adults when I was an adult, not really. And I wish I'd had more time with them, I think, to find out more about them. And that's a big reason for why I'm so keen to continue doing YouTube in my retirement. This channel and the channel that I have with my husband Mark, The Good Life, these channels are really important to me because I want my children, my grandchildren, perhaps even their children, to know me, to know who I was as a person, not as an old lady, but as a person, as a vibrant, middle-aged woman. I'm probably a bit older than middle-aged now, I guess, at 59, unless I'm going to live to 118. That's probably a bit optimistic, but you know where I'm going with this. I want them to see me for who I am now, not who they might remember as a really old lady, God willing that I get into my 80s or 90s. I don't want that to be all they know of me, or only to remember me as they did when they were children. I hope that makes sense, but that's a real reason why I'm doing YouTube. And I think it's a great reason for doing YouTube because you can really show who you are at that moment in time and leave a bit of a legacy. I think number 3 is a little bit morbid, but hear me out here. I want you to think about what's important to you, what will be really important to you when the Grim Reaper starts casting shadows. I don't think anybody's ever lain on their deathbed wishing they'd worked more, wishing they'd spent less time with family and friends, wishing they'd never had adventures, wishing they'd never challenged themselves to do something that felt a little bit scary. I don't think anybody lies on their deathbed thinking those things. And I think lying on our deathbed is the point at which the regrets will really start to come to the fore. And I think when we enter retirement, or we're planning for retirement, whilst we don't want to dwell on it, I do think it's useful to look ahead and think, if I was reading my own eulogy, what would I want to say about me? What would I want to be included in there? Would I really want it to say, she worked herself to death, she never had time for friends and family, she never pushed herself out of her comfort zone, she never achieved anything she wanted to achieve? That's not what I would want my eulogy to say. I'd want it to say, she grew old disgracefully. You know where I'm going. I would want it to be more about experiences, relationships, fun, adventure, and much less about, I guess, regrets. I think to avoid any regrets, we need to start thinking really seriously about what I call our nest. And NEST is an acronym that I came up with when I was health coaching, actually, about the 5 pillars that I think are really important to our health and well-being. NEST is about our nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and our thoughts and feelings. Let me quickly break those down. So if we start with nutrition, I think our bodies as we get older are less forgiving. When we're younger, we can probably eat all the junk food and we can overindulge more regularly and our body will bounce back. I think once we hit 40 onwards, our body doesn't bounce back quite so well. And we are what we eat. And if we're eating a diet full of rubbishy foods that aren't giving us the energy and the nutrients that we need, it's going to show in our body, it's going to show in our health, it's going to show in our energy levels. Now, I don't have a perfect diet by any means, and I've spent my whole life battling with my weight. My weight is very easily prone to going up. It's definitely getting harder to go down the older I get, but I eat a relatively well-balanced and healthy diet for most of the time. I am working on not eating quite so much of that healthy diet, because even eating healthy foods, if you eat too much of them, will pile up on the areas that you don't want it to. Thinking about your nutrition, not necessarily being obsessive about it, but just looking for ways that you can improve the quality of the food that you're putting into your body. Now is a great time to start doing it. We don't want to wait until we have a problem to then have to address that issue. Let's be more proactive in putting our body in the best possible condition it can be to see us through our later years. I think that's really important. And I think probably from age 40 onwards is the time when we need to start really evaluating the quality of the nutrition that we eat, because why wait? We are what we eat, and we will feel so much better if we're eating a good diet. The E in NEST is exercise. And again, over the age of 40, our bodies start to show signs of wear and tear. It's inevitable, and we can slow that down by being active, by considering functional movement so that we continue to keep the body doing what it's meant to do. Now, I am not preaching about this. I know that I do not do as much exercise as I could, or probably as my body would need. But I think there are some things that you can do, even if you hate going to the gym. It's not just about going to the gym. In fact, it's not even about going to the gym. It's about looking at your day-to-day life and thinking, how can I be more physically active? So the old bits of advice are great. Don't take the lift or the escalator, use the stairs. Don't take easy options because maybe you've got a bit of a joint ache or your bones creak a little bit. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And we need good functional movement as we get older to enable us to continue to have independent active, enjoyable lives. It's all very well having a long retirement, but it's not so much fun if that retirement is thwarted because our body isn't strong enough, flexible enough, coordinated enough to be able to do the things we want to do. So for me, I know that over the last few years while I was running my business, my health and my well-being really took a back seat, and I'm trying to readdress that now by doing things like doing more walking. Part of the reason for having our camper van is to make us have to get out into nature, and we love it. Getting out into nature is so good for our physical and mental well-being. So walking, we dance. Dancing is well documented as being a fantastic activity for supporting our physical and mental well-being. And the beauty of dancing is that it challenges so many different areas of fitness. It challenges stamina, it challenges our aerobic fitness, coordination, balance, motor skills. There's so many things that dancing is, like, for me, the perfect all-round, perfect exercise regimen. It's just, well, there you go. You can tell I'm passionate about dancing. But gardening and playing sports, going and playing golf or taking up a racket sport, it doesn't have to be sort of intense, high energy training. I'm not suggesting we all go and start CrossFit classes, although if that's your thing and you want to do that, great. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it doesn't have to be high intensity exercise. But think about functional movement. What activities can you do that will help you as you get older to do things like standing up out of a chair easily, kneeling down on the floor and being able to stand back up again without having to get somebody else to give you a hand up. One of the things I absolutely despise in general are these chairs that tip you up and tip you out. Now, I'm not talking about if you've got a physical disability, that means you need that extra help to get out of a chair. But I see many times where people use tools like that to save them having to do it themselves, possibly not realizing that by utilizing tools to make life easier, we're actually doing quite a lot of damage to ourselves in the long run. So that's exercise. The first S in my NEST acronym is sleep. I'm going to put a disclaimer in here and put my hands up and say, I have not got this one sorted yet. I fully understand and appreciate the benefits of prioritizing sleep. I'm just not very good at doing it. But we know that from studies that have been done that there seems to be a link between things like dementia and Alzheimer's disease and poor sleep quality. So I need to get better at this. And I actually find it harder now I'm not doing as much to be able to prioritize sleep. But I think it is something that we need to think hard about and not underestimate the impact that poor sleep can have on our physical and mental well-being. And that kind of moves on to the next one, which is stress. Now, one of the benefits of retiring, I think, is getting rid of some of the workplace stress. But of course, there are still likely to be stresses in our lives, whether that's family stresses, financial stresses, physical and health stresses. There are always going to be stressful things that happen in life. But if we can look at reducing the number of stresses, it could be things like simplifying or minimalizing your life, getting rid of some of the stuff that you don't need, some of the clutter. There's huge amounts of stuff on YouTube talking about decluttering and minimalizing and simplifying life. And if having too much stuff stresses you out, well, retirement is probably a brilliant time to start paring back, getting rid of some stuff. That in itself can be stressful. I do know that. Maybe I'll do another video completely about that. But I think the act of clearing out our lives is a great way to reduce stress. And there are stresses that we just cannot get rid of. They're going to be there. But what we can do is work on our response to that stress. We can find ways to manage our stress. When we are stressed, we trigger our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, and that puts our body in a state of high alert. And if we're constantly in that state of high alert, that is going to take its toll on our physical and mental well-being. And it's certainly not going to make retirement a pleasant time of life. So we want to find ways to switch off that fight or flight response and move more into our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, chilled nervous system. And we can do that actually by doing things that help with the other elements of Nest. So focusing on getting good sleep, but also eating well and exercising more. But some things that could really help: getting out in nature, getting out in the sunshine, getting some vitamin D. Walking in nature is so good. Finding activities that make us feel good. Finding hobbies that we enjoy doing. Things that we can do almost without a purpose to them, that allow us to be really mindful about what we're doing, get into that sort of mindful state. Meditation can be really useful for helping us to get back into that calmer nervous system. There's lots of things that we can do, even if we are stressed, to make sure that the stress doesn't get the better of us. And then the final element of Nest is our thoughts and feelings. And I think any change is going to throw up potential challenges. It's going to challenge who we are. Who am I now I'm retired? What is my identity? What's my sense of purpose? What beliefs do I have about retirement? What beliefs do I have about myself if I'm not who I was, if I'm not a career girl, if I'm not whatever your job title was? There's an awful lot that can go on in the head that we need to be aware of and challenge. So I think some things to consider for our thoughts and feelings are: who do I want to be now I'm retired? Another question might be, what is my purpose in life now I'm retired? Because it isn't going to be the same as it was when you were working. My purpose in life now is actually to relax and have fun. That is my sole purpose. Now, am I saying that life every day is going to be unicorns and rainbows? Absolutely not. But my purpose now is to find ways to enjoy life and have fun. And that's okay. I think that is an okay purpose in life. And if I can help people along the way by maybe doing this YouTube channel, or I don't know, maybe in the future I might volunteer to do some stuff, I don't know. But it's going to be with a very strong focus on fun and enjoyment, because I believe we've earned it. By the time we've worked for nearly 40 years or more, I think we've earned the right to have a sense of purpose around being about having fun. Now, that's not going to be the same for everybody. I will caveat this with, if you absolutely love working, then working may well still be your sense of purpose. But I think it's about finding the choice, making it a choice, and having almost challenging what's driving that need to work. And if the need to work is because it brings you fun and enjoyment, that's absolutely fine. But if it's something else, I would potentially challenge that. If it's because if I'm not working, I'm not earning money. Well, I did say this isn't about finances, and it's not. But you might find that the money is the driver, even though you probably don't need as much as you think. It might be because you've tied your identity up with status, and money gives you status. And maybe that's why you feel, I've got to keep working. And that may not be the best thought process either. So there isn't a right or wrong. I'm just saying maybe it's something that you would want to think about and challenge if the motivation behind that need to work is not a positive one. Another question to ask yourself is, have I got a plan, and do I have any goals? Now, I've spent the last 8 years running my business, setting lots of plans and goals. And when I retired, I said, I don't want to do that anymore. I do not want to have goals. I do not want to have a plan. Well, turns out without a plan and without some goals, there's a very high likelihood I'm just going to drift. What I don't want to do is set targets and deadlines for my goals, but I do think it's really useful to have a sense of direction of where you want to go. So I know that my plan is, in conversation with Mark, my husband, to potentially reevaluate where we live. Do we need a big 4-bedroomed house, or can we downsize? If we downsize, do we want to stay in this area? Are there other parts of the UK or the world that we might want to live in? And I'm not saying have a mapped out step-by-step 10-year goal, but to have some sense of direction around where you want to be in a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time. So we're thinking about things like, we've discovered camper vanning. Where do we want to take that? Do we want to upgrade our van? If we do upgrade the van, when do we want to do that? Where do we want to go in the van? What places do we want to visit? I think, I'd say, not having hard and fast rules, but I think we need a plan. You wouldn't start any journey without a vague idea of the direction you need to go in to get there. And I think, again, when you are thinking about your sense of purpose and your identity, you have to have some sort of plan in mind. Otherwise, you're going to find it very difficult to really know where your identity fits into this new life that you have. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments how you're going to avoid having those regrets. What would you add to my video? Let us know in the comments. Share them, because your thoughts and your ideas may well help other people, may well help me too. I do read all of the comments, so please do share in the comments. What are your ideas about how to avoid having those retirement regrets? And if you have enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and share it with other people if you know that they maybe are thinking about retirement too. And if you're still wondering whether retirement is the right thing for you or not, watch this video next, where I'm sharing my reasons for why I decided to retire early. Until next time, take care.